Welcome back to Geeks and Grounds, a monthly game club and weekly podcast where we play games and brew thoughtful conversations together. I am your host, Jenny Wyndham.
And I'm Joel Thomas. I drink your milkshake. I drink it up. That was a There Will Be Blood reference because today we're talking Arco, end of game, oil, and blood.
This ending had, my jaw was dropped. I held my breath. The suspense, the sunset. Oh my gosh. Everything about this act was incredible.
Like some incredible irony that like made me laugh out loud at the end game. Like and there was like some moments that was like, I am playing a video game. I am like going up against Dr. Robotnik's giant machine at the end of Sonic 2. I am playing Mega Man, fighting like it just felt like I am like in video game mode, and I was like so excited. I felt like I was really cruising, and I cannot wait to discuss this chapter.
Yeah, me too. I am so excited. So just for a refresher, if you're new here or if you need a little reminder, we are playing Arco for this month. Every month we play a new game. We focus on it in depth week by week, going through each section of the game. And in a sort of I keep likening it to like an audio let's play because we go through the narrative, but then we add our thoughts, reactions, and connections that we make not only from the game itself, but into other things that we may be experiencing out in the world, because we love to just like slow down and enjoy the game and like really savor it in that way. Like a good cup of coffee, one might say, in this little digital cafe. So we're playing Arco. Today is the finale. We are finishing up our discussion. So everything, once we get to the game discussion point, will be full of spoilers. It is not spoiler free at all. We are going to delve into everything. If you are new and you're like, wait, I haven't played the game, I want a little bit of an intro as to what Arco is and what's happened thus far in the story. Go back a few episodes to Arco episode 1, and you'll be all caught up. But if you're ready, we're going to be diving into the full spoiler finale in just a moment. Before we do that, though, we always like to take us just a brief pit stop at the Pastry Case. It's our grab bag of topics around the industry, what else we've been engaging with aside from the game of the month. And we got a lot of fun little snacks to talk about today in the Pastry Case. GDC was last week, and while I am so sad that I ended up not being able to go because of a nice little foot injury I had, there was some really good stuff that came out of the week. And so I wanted to take a little time to celebrate just a couple of pieces of news that I thought were, for me, just really exciting and interesting. The first is, if you have a chance, you can watch actually the IGF Awards. It's the Indie Game Awards. What does the festival? There we go. That's what the F stands for.
Okay.
I'm like, I knew this a second ago and I started talking. So the Indie Game Festival Awards, this is like peer nominated, peer voted. So this is like other people in the industry celebrating, you know, the work that they appreciate within the industry. There are a huge bevy of nominees and winners. Previous winners include folks and nominees include folks like Venba, 1,000 Times Resist, a lot of the Geeks and Grounds titles. And honestly, the games that come out of this festival in particular are the ones that if they haven't been on my radar, I put them on my radar because this is where like the good shit is. You know what I mean? Like this is the good stuff.
Yeah. We all need sources.
Exactly. And this is where you find, I think, some of the really exciting stuff that is coming from developers who are really pushing, like such a cliche saying, but pushing the boundaries of the medium forward. But it's true. This is like, and I think what's indicative of it is that these are games that are celebrated by people who are in the industry and like really are in the know. And so it's like, you get people who are just embedded in games. What are they excited about? That's what this is about.
I love that view because otherwise it's, I don't know, Jenny scrolling through the Steam launch page for hours and hours a day. Like we need a little bit of help.
Yeah, this is a great way just to like quickly see what's going on, what's really cool. I think there are about 10 different awards going from like excellence in visual arts to audio, narrative. There's the Nuovo Award, which is I think kind of like the up and coming like cool new thing. And things like best student game, audience awards, etc. So this is some really cool stuff. I highly encourage you to take a look at all of the winners. I wanted to highlight one in particular because it was nominated for quite a few of the awards and it won the McNally. It's like the Seamus McNally Grand Prize, and that is Consume Me, which is like super exciting. I've been following this game, I think, since probably 2017. Maybe.
Damn.
I think I went and saw it at one of my first like Day of the Devs events. And it was like right as I started being in the industry. So it was like 2016,
Whoa.
2017. I played it very long time ago. And this game has been in development and it doesn't have a release date, but it is coming out soon. I would expect within the next like 6 months probably. And it's a game that's sort of darkly comedic. It's about body issues. It's about disordered eating habits, pressures of particularly being like a young woman. And it's done in a really funny way. You kind of go through the days of a life of this young girl or young teenager who's like trying to, I think, get in shape or fit into a dress for this event or like be ready for this one thing because her crush is going to be there. Really cool. I'm very excited for the game to release and for us honestly to probably play it at some point.
Let's go. Love it.
And so yeah, just wanted to celebrate that and the wonderful games that were celebrated over that event.
I was just having a conversation. I got to visit my brother this last week, and we were talking about conversations around disordered eating and some of the things that, messages we were told growing up and hard times. And I was just reflecting on how I don't know how to engage in these conversations. Like I can approach things with empathy and listening, of course, but I would love some sort of engagement with media that like gives a chance for us to talk about these types of things. And I feel like I have never gotten to play a game as a medium to be a part of that. So it feels like a really good opportunity. I'm pumped for it.
Yeah, same. Like this is probably Consume Me is funny because I've been following it for so long. It was like initially on my most anticipated, and then I kind of like pulled it off because there was never really a release sort of timeline for it.
It probably was still the most anticipated.
Yeah, and it is now one of my most anticipated because I agree. I think there are few games that I can think of, and I don't think of really any on a more commercial scale that deal with this kind of topic. And the team, I think they're gonna I think they've done an incredible job. So I'm excited for folks to be able to play. The reason also that I've played this is because I used to work at one of the funders for the game. So like I've been able to see some of how the builds progressed, and I think it's going to be really good. So yeah, very excited.
Awesome.
And then special shout out to Alexa Ray and Emma Kidwell, who are co-hosts for the IGF this year. Impeccable job. So just like incredible to see two women up there hosting the show, two really witty and like smart writers, and it showed in the script. So yeah, amazing job. And I believe the VOD is on Twitch or YouTube if you would like to watch. So yay. The other big news I wanted to celebrate, this is really good big news, is that at GDC, the United Video Game Workers Union decided to launch officially in partnership with the Communication Workers of America. This is the first, as far as I know, North American industry-wide unionizing effort that has happened since ever. So really, really cool to see this movement progressing, especially now.
Man, I saw the link to this, and it was like my Arco oil covered heart just got like a Dawn scrubbing bubble rinse. It was just like, I feel like so often when we hop into Geeks and Grounds, it's been like layoff after layoff after layoff, and CEOs' perspectives on like why things are hard. And so like being able to just like see even just like a link, and I was reading through it, but
Mhm.
that is showing up and giving the workers in these industries a fair shake at representation is just
Mhm.
so refreshing. Like I just feel a little
Yeah.
bit cleaner. I don't know. It was just like a really exciting to see thing to see. And I think, you know, when you're leveraging these unions and getting connected to other unions, that's where there's like just tremendous power. And so seeing, you know, they're connected to the
Mhm.
Communication Workers of America, incredible, very exciting.
Yeah, I completely agree. After what has been multiple years of just like layers and layers of bad news, it has been really exciting to have something to celebrate about within the
Hmm.
labor sector of the game industry. Um, I wanted to read their mission statement, or at least a portion of it, because it's awesome. They say, "Our mission is to take back our lives, our labor, and our passion from those who treat us like replaceable cogs, to empower our fellow workers, to link up arms with the laid off, with the freelancer, with the disillusioned contractor, with the disenfranchised and the marginalized, with the workers laboring invisibly to keep this industry afloat. We are going to create a game industry that works for us, one that nourishes its talent and invests in its future rather than constantly seeking short-term profits.
Mm.
We are the ones that make the games, so we must be the ones that set the terms of how we work." Hell yeah.
Hell yes.
They have a zine that is free and available for folks to print, to distribute, to read and learn more about how this works. It's a direct join union, so you do not have to have it at your workplace. Anyone in the industry can join. If you're a freelancer, you can join. If you work at a publisher, you can join. And I will also link that zine in this week's newsletter out on Wednesday so that you can access it if you would like. But you can also just search for it in whatever search engine you use. But it's just very
Man.
exciting to see this happening. And I hope it continues to gain momentum. So, yeah, great news.
In a world where we are seeing, or in the States especially, the
Hmm.
power of labor getting actively blocked by our federal government, it is
Hmm.
just so encouraging to see. It's like ultimately, like we are the ones that have the influence here. We have the power, and it's just
Yep.
so good to see an opportunity for us to start leveraging it
Hmm.
collectively.
Exactly. And just a shout out to their tagline that they had for their poster. And I think it's on their zine cover too. It says, "We're done playing." And I was like,
Hey,
ah, like that goes so hard. That's
that's
so
so
good.
good.
Oh my gosh. So, congratulations to everyone who worked together to set that up, to organize and make it happen at GDC. And yeah, if you're interested, definitely search up the organization. Again, it's United Video Game Workers, CWA, which is the Communication Workers of America. That's like the wider umbrella it's under. And yeah, check out the zine. It's pretty cool.
Amazing. Well, Jenny, what have you been getting into over the last little bit here?
Um, Other than playing Arco, I wasn't gonna play Fields of Mystria
Mm,
because I was like, oh, it's early access still. I just want to wait for the 1.0.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. How'd it
Yeah,
go?
no. I am but a weak human. You can't expect me to stand up against the will of Fields of Mystria.
No.
And yeah, no, I've been playing the March update, which is the latest update in Fields of Mystria. It is just so good. We can get up to 10 hearts in our romances now. We have a new well, it's a character we know, but sort of a new form that this character takes, which is really exciting. Um there's gossip, which is really fun. It's like a way to figure out what people like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have a pet now, so I have a cat. It's named Scrambles, just like my
Oh,
orange cat.
oh.
And I have got now my second strawberry cow. So really, life is good on the farm. I can't complain.
Wow. I mean, I feel like this game, it's like a siren call for you, Jenny. Like,
It is.
it's like, I was wondering if you had appropriately stuffed beeswax over your ears and strapped yourself to a pole. Apparently not.
No, unfortunately, I decided, you know what? I want to play it. I could wait, but why? Why? What's the point?
Let's have some joy. Let's have some joy. How about?
Exactly. I'm gonna give myself permission to just have fun, and I'm gonna play Fields of Mystria. So yeah, I've been really loving Fields of Mystria. Um, no surprises there. But it's really nice to see an early access that was already really strong get even better. And honestly, I'm still excited for the 1.0 launch. Like, I think it's just they've done some incredible things, and I think genuinely it's my favorite farming sim, perhaps hands down right now. I think they don't have the depth that Stardew has, but also Stardew has been out for what, a decade
Yeah,
now.
a bit.
And so like I think sort of pound for pound, Fields of Mystria just has everything that I want. So yeah. What about you? Have you been playing anything fun?
I have been traveling for work over the last little stretch here, and
Mm-hmm.
so I decided to use my time to preemptively get into Okami.
Yeah.
Okami it's a bonus brew for
Yep.
April, is that right?
Yep.
So just a quick plug that if you are interested in joining us for a bonus brew in April, check out Okami. I've only ever watched my friend play it. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's been such a delight to hop in
Hell
and
yeah.
do the mechanics myself. And I gotta say, like, it feels really good. I'm having a lot of fun. So
Nice. Are you playing it on your Steam Deck primarily?
yeah, playing
Okay,
on the Steam
cool.
Deck. Yeah, it's been great.
Awesome.
I've also been on the road watching a lot of shows. So I'm just gonna like rattle them off
Yeah.
just so y'all
Okay.
know, like, the big hitters right now.
Mm-hmm.
Wheel of Time is back, baby. I'm loving the new season.
Yep.
We did get through the season finale of Severance. I think it's one of the best
Oh
season
my
finales of any
God.
show ever. I would put it in a top 5 category. Solo Leveling, I sat in the
Mm.
airport waiting for the most recent episode to download so that I could watch on the plane. Incredible. I got caught up in White Lotus yesterday, and I finished
Oh,
season 1 of Kaiju number 8. I am just like, I was feasting on television this last
wow.
week.
I was gonna say that's gonna be me this week because I'm gonna be pre-downloading all of the episodes, and then on the plane, just get your phone ready and
Mm-hmm.
probably fall asleep while
Mm-hmm.
I watch. But yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Oh my gosh, the Severance finale. Oh, so good. I
I
just yeah.
I mean, we are not here to spoil Severance for
No.
you all. So we
No.
won't drop anything. I will just say, like, I don't think it could have ended any other way. It just set up season 3 so perfectly. The story,
Mm-hmm.
like, we got this beautiful complete arc for season 2. I was just like such a
Yeah.
good experience. I was like texting my friend. I was just like, what? What? Like every 5 minutes. It was so good.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, we had some folks over to have like the finale watch party, and yeah, it was great. I also could not have imagined it ending any other way. I don't think I would have wanted to end it any other way.
Mm-mm.
And I am so excited for season 3 and really hoping we don't have to wait as long as we did for
Yeah.
season 2.
To not wait 3 to 4 years would be lovely.
Yeah.
Um, quick things that I'm listening to: Japanese Breakfast in Coheed and Cambria dropped some new music, so I also had that
Mm.
kind of getting me through my flight. And then my youngest brother has become a Sanderson fanboy.
Yeah, I remember you
Uh, he
mentioning.
is currently in the Sander Lanch of Rhythm of War. And so
Okay.
I told him once he's done, I will re-listen to Wind and Truth with him so that we can be chatting about it together. And I'm just like, I'm very excited for that. Like having a
Mhm.
chance to talk with my bro and
Yeah.
jump back into this world. So very
That's
excited.
awesome. Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I've been talking with another friend about sort of repetition of media
Mm,
recently, and how like it's really nice to like replay games, reread books. Like so often, I feel like at least I feel a pressure to constantly do like the next thing because everyone else is doing the next thing.
yeah.
And honestly, like rereading Wind and Truth, there is so much that happens. I feel like I would like to do that as well. So that's cool that you're going to get to do that with your brother too. That's such a
Yeah.
nice time.
I'm pumped. But what about you? What else have you been getting into?
Um lots and lots of reading. So I
Awesome.
the new Hunger Games book came out, and I do love the Hunger Games. I thought that was such a great series. And it was one of my favorite series to teach when I taught middle school. And so Sunrise on the Reaping is the name of the new book, and it details the Hunger Games that Haymitch, one of the main characters that is in the original series, it details his Hunger Games. Absolutely
Oh,
heartbreaking. This, like, and you go into this book knowing it's going to be tragic. Like, you know what's going to happen. You know that by the end of the book, this government will still be in power, but it's a matter of like, what is the journey that he took to get to who he was when you met him in the original series. And I'll have to lend it to you. It was like a super power read. Like, I finished it in 2 sessions in one day, essentially.
that's how I felt back when the first time I read through that series.
Yeah.
I didn't read the fourth book that came out semi
Mm-hmm.
recently. I would love to get, and like, I thought Haymitch was such an interesting and dynamic character. So man, that sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
And it's one of those things where this kind of book is absolutely for the fans. Like, I think this is one of those where if you're a fan of the series, you're probably going to really love it. You're going to eat it up. I certainly did. My biggest worry is, having all of these books that follow this core trilogy that she wrote. I was like, I really hope it doesn't dilute what the core book was about, or like
Yeah.
what happened, or dilute the characters in any way. And I'm, at least from my immediate, like, I finished it just the other day, and so who knows what I'll think maybe once it sat a little bit longer. But right now I feel like the ways that I learned more about Haymitch and a few of the other characters that are quite pivotal in the sort of main trilogy has really deepened my appreciation for the book and for these characters and the world as a whole. So I think if anyone's worried about reading it and ruining the original experience, I don't think that was the case here. It's like knowledge that helped me appreciate more than feel like it simmered anything down, or like, yeah, diluted anything down, which was really cool.
Man, while we still have Woody Harrelson alive,
Oh
can we
my
get a movie of him reflecting on his past? Man, how good would that
god.
be?
Oh man, Woody Harrelson, I just love. He's just such a fun actor to watch, and
Agreed.
anything he's in, I just think
Agreed.
he just draws the eye. Um, I've also been reading Parable of the Sower, which is a reread for me, but I haven't read it since high school, and so rereading it now has been. I've heard a lot of people are rereading it, which is why I chose to pick up a fresh copy and start rereading. And
Mhm.
I mean, it's just as bleak as one may imagine. This book is a sort of sci-fi technically, but it feels very uncannily accurate because this was written in the 90s, and it's by Octavia Butler. And it's an exploration of this future America in which the world has kind of hit its tipping point, and change needs to happen, some sort of like revolution, or just social change needs to happen. And this is a world that is very precarious, and like what the
Mm.
perspective of this one teenage girl is as she lives in this world, and you follow that along through years. And yeah, I just restarted it. And I'm at the part where like people are talking about getting measles again. And so it's one of those things, especially with like the measles outbreaks that are happening now. It's a little bit hard to read in some sense, but also oddly comforting in another. Uh, so yeah, if you're able to handle a slightly depressing read, but also I think very hopeful read in some ways,
Mm.
um, Parable of the Sower. It's a classic.
Awesome.
Honestly, it's probably one of those like if you're a sci-fi fan and you haven't read any of Butler's work, you absolutely need to pick this one up.
I don't know how this one specifically has missed me. I've read so many other books from
Mm-hmm.
Octavia Butler, but this one specifically, I think when we got to the point in this book coming back in kind of our cultural consciousness,
Yeah.
it just felt so real. And I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I'm in a place where I can handle that. Like, books need to kind of
Yeah.
be an escape for me right now.
Yeah. That is
And
very understandable.
the more I heard about it, the more I was like, I just can't. I'll go back and
Mm-hmm.
read Fledgling or Kindred
Yeah.
for crying out loud. But like, yeah, it was a little intense for me. So I'm glad that you're engaging
Yeah.
with it and enjoying it.
No, that's honestly, that's why I had put it off rereading for so long. Because even back in like 2020, people were like, I'm
Yeah.
rereading it and it's so good and relevant. And it's taken me this long to be like, okay, I think I'm ready to. But even now, it has been a challenging read just emotionally,
Sure.
because it's one of those things where I'm like, man, she read about this in the 90s, and you know, instead of being a, oh, look at this as a warning sign, now it's one of those like, what can we hopefully learn from some of the lessons in this book that we can apply? I don't know. There's like a different way to
Yeah.
engage with it now than I did even when I was in like high school. So yeah, that's been interesting. And then for my fun, lighthearted read, which I'm like super stoked about, I actually have it right here, because when I have like a mental break from work, sometimes I'll just flip it open, is Video Game of the Year. Um, this is a book by Jordan Miner, and what's really cool is that I have like a lot of friends who have writing in this that I also didn't even know had contributions. But basically, this is a book that goes through, it starts at 1977, goes all the way to 2022, which is, I presume, when the writing on this book stopped, because publishing had to happen. And it includes just like one selection for each year, like this is the game of that year and why. And it's just like been really fun to go through game history and that kind of more personal perspective for each of the writers. And yeah, highly recommend it if you're just looking for a fun video game book to have in your roster.
We've had Video Game of the Year since 1977. I
Video
did not.
games, yeah,
What?
Pong I think is the first one, if I'm remembering. Yeah, Pong is 1977.
Wild.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
yeah, it's been around for a long time,
I
but also
feel.
not very long if you think about it.
I mean, 77's 50 years. That's a good. It's a good amount of time
It's
for
a
an
good amount
award.
of time.
It's just like it's incredible to me. Like this is like a such a fresh form of media, and yet these awards have
Hmm.
been going for so. Like I bet there are some real odd duck video games of the year in there.
I feel like I'm looking at it. I won't spoil it because I think part of the fun is also like for folks
Seeing
who
what it
purchase
is.
the book, see what it is. But I feel like for the most part, there aren't any like super, super deep cuts in as far as what they selected for like each major game of the year.
Mhm.
But there are contributions. They have these sections called like extra life, where it's like, here's like a highlight from that year that you may not
Oh,
have heard
cool.
of. Here's like an indie. And so in those extra life sections, you get a little bit more of that like deep cut flavor. So those are really fun. And I think those are the ones that have the most like external contributions to the
Hmm.
book. So but yeah, this is just really cool. Like my friend Janet Garcia, like I just flipped open to the page. She's in here. Um, yeah, it's just my friend Sean. It's just really cool because I think also it really solidified for me how small and how fresh this industry is. But yeah, so that's been a fun like, hey, let me just open up to the page and see what cool thing I learn about video games here.
That's very fun. I love
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. And yeah, honestly, other than that, Severance, White Lotus, like I've been keeping up with all the same shows as well, and it's just been a good time for media, honestly.
Yeah, it's something about like I don't know why we have such great stories being told right now, but it's like I needed a little bit of circus and I'm appreciating it. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
thanks.
Awesome. And just to finish out this section, new releases for the pastry case. We're just highlighting a couple that may be really cool on the radar. The first is Spilled. It's coming out on March 26th, and this is a game where you are a little tugboat, or you start at least as a little tugboat, and you're cleaning out the ocean.
Oh,
Super satisfying. If you like games kind of like the Power Wash simulators, the any organization type of game, any game where you like to see the fruits of your labor kind of immediately. This is one of those. And I like the sort of environmental message it has. The other one is Karma. This is coming out on March 27th. And this one is much darker. It's a first person, like psychological thriller in a
mm.
dystopian world. So, again, maybe it's one that hits a little too close to home. It's set in 1984 in East Germany. And essentially, I think you play like a um part of a like as an agent for essentially like the thought police. And so this is like you in that role interviewing suspects and like figuring out if you can trust yourself, if you can trust your peers,
Whoa.
things like that. So it's like a lot of psychological horror. Do you trust reality kind of questions happening here?
That's wild. I've never thought about something like that. I feel like it's a pretty the game looks pretty gorgeous too. Like
Mm-hmm.
the illustration animation is really incredible.
Yeah, so that's Karma and out on the 27th and again Spilled on the 26th. And as always, if you would like to get links to this, to all of the stuff we mentioned, and to the zine, for example, be sure to sign up to our newsletter at geeksandgrounds.com. And I will be sending that out on Wednesday. All right, so Arco.
Oil and blood.
Oil and blood.
I got my arrows. I got my dynamite. I got my hook arm thing. I have not had thought of a more like fun, balanced group of video game characters to play in a very long time.
Yeah, you know what I love about this game is it has this like eclectic feeling. It's not like a twist necessarily, but it's a play on one of my favorite tropes, which is like the found family eclectic crew coming together to defeat God.
Hell
Um,
yeah. We love it.
and this is like, they're not necessarily, I wouldn't call these folks found family. Like they have nothing that really connects them other than their combined hatred for the Red Company.
Mm-hmm.
But it is enough of a play on that trope that I love that I was so in it. Like I was very excited to start this act. I was very excited to see where it would go, and I was not disappointed with the ending personally.
I feel the same. Like we had really crisp story beats throughout this whole act, and the way we got to watch the characters engage with it, like there was a good balance of like humor while also not losing the stakes of this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed it. So I'm kind of pumped to get into the conversation.
Yeah.
Let me start with this. Do you suspect, because I think we'll uncover this as we talk through this,
Uh-huh.
do you suspect that we got the same ending?
I feel like we maybe did. I think with the switch of the Afur and Chio, like
Mhm.
I think that aside,
Mhm.
I think we got the same ending,
I am
perhaps.
curious about it. So I'm interested to
Yeah.
see the kind of like the final beats of the story that you got.
Okay, actually, if you could pick one word to describe your ending, or maybe your feeling on the ending, what word would you use to describe your feeling of the ending?
Well, I think referencing within the game, the one
Mm-hmm,
word that I
mm-hmm,
would describe is
mm-hmm.
tree.
Okay. I also would agree with that. Yes. um,
Hmm. Okay, this is like such
yeah.
an interesting game because there's a decision point that you make as you're approaching this end point, and I was just wondering if it influenced what your end game experience was. So pumped to get into
Ooh,
it and
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
talk through
yeah.
that. To your point, like we have this found family. We're in the found
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 acquaintances.
acquaintances, aligned
Compatriots.
goals, compatriots. Love it. In the bar that they all
Mm-hmm.
left off in. Um, I don't know that I can think of another game that has had this approach to getting the gang together. Like crisp
Yeah.
acts that like you have no connection between these characters and they all end up and then like that is the whole end game. Have
Yeah.
you I mean, you've played a lot more games than I have. Does this sound like a familiar experience to you?
No, and I think that's what I meant by kind of that twist, because usually in this kind of game, if you are going to fight God, you have met these friends like within the first act
Yeah,
primarily.
right.
Like I think of like a Final Fantasy, right?
Hmm.
Usually by the end of the first disc, you would have found most of the characters, if not all, that make up your party. And what's interesting is that this game divided up their journeys, so they were not working together until the final act. And I don't know. I again, with everything happening in the world, I think a lot about organizing and the ways that despite differences in backgrounds, if you have this unified goal, what does that mean? How do you
Mm.
come together for that shared purpose, even though maybe everything else in your lives do not tie you together? I think there's something there that's very interesting to explore. But yeah, I loved it, and I think it felt very real to me, where I'm like, of course, they weren't all best friends growing up, in adjacent tribes. Um, it was these really compelling happenstances that brought them together, which feels like a very real world thing that happens to groups of people, right?
I love that you brought up the tribes because this is not something that I had ever. I don't have this in my notes. I hadn't really reflected on this, but like their stories are so different. Like they
Hmm.
come from very different people groups. Their motivations are very different. Like the amount of time they've spent with others is very different. You have Tizo, this like old man who's been on his own for like years and years and
Hmm.
years. You have Itzai, who was pretty recently kind of shunned from his community and is now in the bar. And
Yeah.
for me, I have Chio, who just lost her brother and is like
Hmm.
now in this new situation. Like such different circumstances around these characters coming together and finding each
Hmm.
other.
Yeah. I I really, yeah, again, I really like that. I think it made me feel it gave me the opportunity to also appreciate each of the characters and their journeys that they took before they came to the point in which they were ready to take action as a group.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that we don't often get to see in the narratives of these heroes' stories. We usually see them as they are starting their hero's journey, but it's like the hero's journey actually starts before that, and it's like we got to see the before the sort
Yeah.
of direct action that they take. So it felt like it was a shift of that more traditional storytelling element, even though we get, the traditional kind of arc happening.
Yeah.
I liked the shift that it felt like it gave us in terms of the story and characters.
It's interesting too, because like I was wondering how they were going to balance out the perspectives of this final act. Like,
Hmm.
do we get to choose which character is like our focal point main character, or are we going to be
Yeah.
locked into one? Like so we find ourselves in this bar and the backdrop is we've learned that in the oil sands there's this like major refinery. This is where El Gallo is, and they've
Hmm.
been kidnapping and enslaving people and taking them out there to work.
Hmm.
And the response between my three characters probably similar. You have
Yeah.
Itzai, who's like very like gung-ho, what do you mean we're making a plan? And then you have Tizo and Chio, who are
Yeah.
very much like, thanks, Itzai, she, her.
Yeah.
Uh, appreciate that. Being much more like, oh, like we're trying to make a plan and be discreet here.
Mhm,
Let's
mhm.
be careful. That balance I thought was very fun. And the only my one like wish is I would have loved to see more arguments about that. I thought it would have been very fun.
Yeah, no, I really the way that this arc, and this chapter began, I think was really nice because we got to talk to everyone. I thought it was interesting that we defaulted back to Tizo. It felt very full circle in a way, and it made me feel like this was for sure the finale. Like the
Hmm.
fact that we're coming back round to, act one, essentially, character wise. Yeah, for me it was just really fun to see them also sort of be able to argue with one another. I would have also loved to see more arguments and just kind of more of that process, but not because it like impacted the pacing of the game, but more because I really liked the characters and the dynamic they had
Yeah,
together.
that exactly. Like I kind of knew is it coming home. Like I know these
Hmm.
characters, I know their vibe. Like I
Yeah.
want grumpy old Tizo, like with the youngins. Like I don't know, there's just like something about that is like I just want like more. I want just like
Yeah.
more campfire conversations with these folks.
Yeah, especially because I don't know, you feel like so many of them have been alone. Like Tizo has been alone for so long. Um, and Itze, I guess not as long, but it's like they have all been alone in their journeys up until that point. And it's like, yeah, home and campfire are like they are very evocative words, I think, for this moment because it feels so nice and it's definitely that calm before the storm.
Oh yeah.
Uh, I also had a note about the barkeep. Why did I write that down? Oh, okay. So if you did you talk to the barkeep at all? And
Yeah,
did
a
you
little
get the
bit.
conversation where Tizo was kind of like, "Hey, we like really could not have done this without you." Like this I thought that was a really interesting moment because it it was one of those you this wasn't the barkeep story necessarily,
Hmm.
but this couldn't have happened because if we didn't have the barkeep to give them a home base to hide out in and gather the intel and
Oh,
prepare for that final battle, this story wouldn't have happened. And so I thought that moment of acknowledging the barkeep and how even though he provided a place and didn't necessarily go out and fight the Red Company directly, like that work was still really important. I thought was a really great detail.
I agree. And there's also like a degree of realism in this scene
Mhm,
where the
mhm.
barkeep's like, look, we all know that like this might not work. But honestly, even if you just take out, a handful of these guys with you, like that's better for everyone. And like that degree of we have an opportunity here, but we also know that it's unlikely. Like this is a long shot. Was
Mhm.
just I feel like you don't have that conversation much in these types of like
Yeah.
resistance moments, but like there's like real stakes to that. That like the
Mhm.
just going out and doing something, taking this direct action, that in and of itself is valuable enough that like please don't worry about your tab, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It was just like it was a really great moment to have. And I think stakes, that word came up last week.
Hmm.
And I think that's a great word to bring up again because last week I had mentioned, initially in Act 4, I didn't really know where the stakes were for the two, the brother and sister, like what's going on. And I think we reclaimed that by the end of Act 4. And I think having this reminder again about the stakes was really important for me as a player going into this final, like, all right, we're going to leave the bar. And once we leave the bar, that's like our point of no return moment.
Yeah.
And we have to be ready for anything to happen. And I was just like, I don't know what's gonna. I genuinely, I was like, I don't know how many more folks are gonna die. Like, are we all gonna make it? Like, and I had a feeling probably not, and so it made me feel more nervous about continuing.
Hmm.
Mhm.
It was interesting too. Like I think you get like a prophetic dream or something like that in this scene,
Mhm.
where you see an owl, a hunter, and a tree. And I interpreted this as somehow like connecting the three characters, but I
Mhm.
don't know if that's the case. Like, how did you read that as you were encountering it?
Yeah, I had a couple. So the first was like the three characters, but then I was like, I'm not entirely sure. Like the hunter and the tree, I don't know really represent the other two. And so then I was actually thinking about the folk tale that we got at the very beginning of the game from the Tizo's grandfather
Hmm.
about the hunter who like kind of over hunted the area and was sort of punished and turned into the tree. So that's kind of where I was going. But I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on that as well?
I don't know. I had just kind of a similar feeling where it's like, oh, I wonder what the
Hmm.
symbolism is. Like it feels
Yeah.
important, uh, and I interpreted uh, Tizo as the tree immediately. Like that was the thing
Yeah.
that I was wondering. But I was like, I guess Itzai could be a hunter. I don't remember there being any owl symbolism with Chio. And so it was just
Hmm.
like, well, this isn't quite fitting. And so I was just curious. And I mean, if anyone in the comments has drawn some conclusions, I'd love to
Yeah.
hear what the community is seeing there as well.
Yeah. And I think for me, because the tree felt like Tizo, but then with the owl, um, so you can whittle, and this happens later on, or at least I discovered it later
Yeah, yeah,
on,
yeah.
but there's the owl that you discover in Tizo's like inventory. And so for me, I was like, if the tree and the owl are representative of like Tizo in that way, like this felt more like a harkening back to like Tizo's childhood in some form.
I got to the same conclusion, especially like with
Hmm.
the end game. It was like, okay, I think
Yeah.
all three of these are just like it's re-emphasizing these components of that opening of the game with Tizo's past.
Hmm.
I felt like
Hmm.
there were a lot of moments that I got in this chapter that were kind of like putting a
Yeah.
really nice or hard, but certainly meaningful bow
Right.
on Tizo's story.
Yeah. I did think also, and we can talk about this more as we get to the end and final thoughts, but it was interesting to me that um, it makes sense narratively. We started with Tizo, we end with Tizo. Um, but it was interesting because I think up until this point, because we have had an act with each character, I was a little bit like, I wonder what made this more Tizo's story than the others. And perhaps it is just because we started with Tizo and that just, when you're making a story, that's just a nice wrap up. But it
I
was
had the same
interesting.
wondering.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that's why I asked if you think they had the same ending, because like
Mm-hmm.
part of me was wondering, like we're in the spoiler cast here, right? Like we're
Yeah.
going to be seeing Tizo's story as kind of like the final like major moments of this
Right.
overarching arc. And I was kind of like, I really like Chio and I really
Mm-hmm.
wanted more from that character. And so I was like, well, I wonder if I made a choice somewhere along the lines that like made it so that like Tizo is the character that's driving all of this. But
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
think it may be, unless we both played similarly enough that we both only got Tizo and we didn't get the other endings, but I think Tizo is like kind of the de facto final protagonist that you play, regardless of the choices that you make.
yeah, but I think no, too, like your point earlier that like we open the game with him and like it
Mm-hmm.
sets the context for the entire world. I think there's a degree where it's like it would be a bit unsatisfying if the final
That's
beats were
true.
one of the other two. So yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
it's a really good call out.
Yeah. So you have the opportunity. You're in the bar. You catch up with folks. Otzi is here. Cax is here. And they give you a lot of gold. Um, and you can take the time to whittle before you go to bed, which I thought was like, it's one of those things where I guess it felt like such a small moment and a small detail, but it felt really meaningful to do. And I can't imagine having played it and been like, nah, let's not whittle. Just
Let's not whittle.
let's just
I
go to
whittled
bed.
for the record, everyone. I
Yeah.
whittled. Yeah, I agree, and I had no idea where that was going because I remember
Hmm.
like I didn't remember there being whittling when I was playing Tizo. Maybe there wasn't. I
Yeah.
just didn't notice. But when you're playing with the siblings, you he is whittling like when you meet up with him
Hmm.
randomly on your in your encounter. So
Yeah. Well, and I think the reference to whittling is because I think it's his father or his grandfather is whittling when he tells you the story at the
mhm.
campfire. So like
uh
the whittling is that connection to family
ah
and in your like history. So
this game.
it's so good. So you wake up the next morning and you get ready to go on the train to your final destination of El Gallo, but before you go there, there are a lot of things you got to do to get on that train.
I this whole thing. So the whole what you're confronted with the
Hmm.
conflict of this train is even if you had tickets, you would not be allowed to ride this train because you do not fit the type of people that are allowed to be on this train.
Hmm.
And so you kind of have this little mini puzzle for like how are you going to get on there? And a little bit of me felt like I was being trolled throughout this part of the game, but like I also like each time I got trolled, I laughed. Like I thought it was very funny. So like I think
Yeah.
I had to play through this like 3 or 4 times before I successfully got on the train with everybody. I was able to move
Hmm.
forward. What was your experience with this whole section like?
It was about the same. I think it took me like 2 or 3 times, but I was like, oh, I have my, it's like I got the handcuffs, I got the tickets, I should be good. And then they were like, nope, you still got discovered. It didn't work. Try again. And so you have to kind of like figure out the right combination. I was like paying this kid a ton of money over and over again to like distract the guards before I could figure out like the order of the other things I had to do before I could get on. So that was very fun. Yeah, I
So
just
what
thought
did
it
you
was
end up
great.
doing? What was your path forward there?
Okay. So I think I ended up basically having Tizo in handcuffs and like disguised as a prisoner. Itse was like in a barrel, just like stowaway barrel. And then Afur, who is also because there are these wanted posters. And so it's like you can't have like no disguise on like Tizo and Afur because they have wanted posters and people will recognize them if they go on the train.
Hmm.
So then Afur had like a costume and like coal on his face to disguise himself.
Funny.
So I also bought the tickets if I forget if I mentioned that, but yeah, and then I don't know if I had to, but I used the kid to distract the guards as well for insurance. And eventually I was able to do it, but it did take me a couple of tries.
I ended up paying to put both Itzai and Tizo in barrels, and then had
Ah.
Chio. So there's like a vendor outside, and
Mhm.
you can uh, put a cloth over your face to look like a vendor, and then steal
Uh-huh.
their papers. And so I did that. And so
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, like, I don't know how the cause and effect mechanic here works. So like
Yeah.
I got successfully onto the train,
Yeah.
but then immediately got discovered. Is it the
Same.
same? So like for me, the scenario was like they go to talk to me as the vendor and they're like, where are you going? And I
Mhm.
chose I'm going to the oil fields, which seemed less problematic than saying I'm going to headquarters.
Yeah.
But that was apparently the wrong thing because it activated the fight, and I had to fight off all the dudes after that.
That's like exactly what happened to me. I think because I had tried the costume and it like didn't work.
Mm.
And because that was my first failed run. And so what was interesting is I couldn't grab, and I don't know if this was maybe a bug or not, but I couldn't grab it again. And so that's why I rubbed coal on my face. And so I thought maybe I only got discovered because my costume wasn't like the ideal
Mm.
costume, but maybe it was just kind of no matter what you do, you get discovered. Because I also did say the oil fields because I'm like, that's the direction of the train, right? It's like, we're not lying.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the only thing that would make sense to me then is like, I guess you could choose the headquarters, and maybe that would be
Hmm.
better. I mean, I wonder if the disguises change depending on if you are uh Chio or Afur. Like
Maybe,
Chio
yeah.
gets the face covering option, Afur gets the
Coal.
charcoal.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do anything with the charcoal. Like I got it, and I was like, I literally can
Oh,
do nothing with this. So
okay. That's good. That's an interesting detail. Yeah. Again, this is one of those games where I don't think I'm going to play it again immediately, but I know I want to eventually replay this because there's so many side quests also that I left undone, that I'm sure added a lot of really good just depth to the story. But yeah, no, we both got instantly clocked, so that's great. Yet another ambush. We walk through the cars. I thought it was really fun. I loved how tiny the environment was in the train. I thought it was a really fun contrast, especially to the later, like to all the environments we've been in, but also that final act when we're out in the sun-drenched, like
mm.
sunset-drenched oil fields. Like that just felt so cool with that contrast. Um, and yeah, I walked through the train. People generally avoided me. Itse like punched a lady in the face. I don't know if you got that. Um,
I just moved her out of the way. There's like a passenger who's like, "You
mhm.
don't belong here,"
Yeah,
and it's just like,
clutching her pearls. Yeah.
but that was so funny. But I see that you have in your notes the same question that I had, which is you
Mhm.
make your way all the way through this train back and forth doing these fights, getting what you need, and then ultimately you have the opportunity to like try and get in to see the train conductor, which I failed. So
Yep.
I just blew up the train and derailed it. Like,
Yeah, I was like, is there, which I'm going to have to look up. And if anyone experienced a different way to do this, please put it in the comments. But like, I felt like our our reaction to that of just blowing up the train and derailing it felt very like it not well thought out because I'm like, what if we died in that train accident? Then all of this would have been for nothing.
yeah, you like wake up with one health bar left. Like, it's brutal. It's like you would have been better to just jump off the train. Like, what is happening here?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Or we defeated the people who are blocking us from the engineer. Let's just keep going.
Yes.
Let's stop the brakes. Like let's, Final Fantasy 7 style, let's stop the train. Um
I have no idea. Like, it was such a strange moment in the like course of this game where I was just like, even though this whole game has been really like murdery and bloody, it's like, okay, like that's the mechanic of the game. This part did not seem like it was part of the mechanic of the game. It's just like, I don't know. I don't
mhm.
know why I'm doing this. Okay.
I'm glad I wasn't the only I thought I had just like I honestly thought I was like, man, I've definitely unlocked the bad ending now. Like I've really borked this up. Um But no, I guess maybe that's just what happens. Or we are both just really bad at this section of the game.
I mean, that would be very funny as if we interview the team on this one and they're like, "Oh, like
Yeah.
this was supposed to be really easy and both of you did the wrong hard
Yeah,
thing and
why
blew up the
didn't you
train."
just stop the train? You didn't have to blow it up. Um, but yeah,
Oh
no.
boy.
So at least we're unified in that front. Um, we come to as Hizo again, like you said, one health bar separated from the rest of the team. And basically there are a series of battles and of finding the other two team members who fortunately have not died in this accident as well. There are a lot of dead people, but you three seem to be okay.
We're doing fine. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, Chio, I found underneath the body of one of the Red Company people, and they just been stabbing folks. Like they're like, "Oh, I'm fine. Like I've
Yeah.
been fine the whole time. I've just been stabbing folks. What have you guys been doing?"
Mm-hmm. I loved when Issei when she hops out and she's like, "The gods love me. I cannot die." I thought that was really funny. I
So
just
good.
that was
Oh,
wonderful. So again, you get these like really great character moments that just kind of lighten up the mood a little bit, knowing that you're going into some pretty heavy battles and pretty rough times. Um, walking to towards the headquarters
mhm.
because you're in this beautiful like this environment I think is maybe my favorite one visually.
Why was this so beautiful? It
Oh
was an
my
oil
god.
field. I wrote the same thing down.
Mm-hmm.
Stunning.
Yeah, I could not get enough of it. Like it was just the way they did this environment was outstanding. It was a feast for the eyes. uh we unfortunately kept getting ambushed by Red Company members. At this point I'm like, oh my gosh, how do they get so many members in this Red Company? They have so many people.
There are more people in the Red Company
Um,
than there are native populations in this entire region.
honestly, like just so many ambushes. Um, but what was interesting, and I'm curious, I assume the same thing happened to you. I'm curious if the dialogue was the same. Um, in my playthrough, a four ends up getting separated from Tizo and Itze, and a four sees essentially the ghost of Chio, and Chio keeps repeating, "You couldn't protect us. You couldn't protect mom. You couldn't protect me. You couldn't protect us." And eventually, her spirit sort of breaks, or whatever spirit is in there that's representing Chio sort of breaks through, and you have this like spectral battle where you're in this void fighting like bandits. And I wrote down because it was called Gatling Bandit Soul and like Melee Bandit Soul. So it's like Bandit soul, not like Chio's soul.
Hmm.
So it's like this like negative presence, spiritual presence that's like again playing off of that guilt mechanic that we've been experiencing sort of in this battle for with Afur. Did you get that?
No, because and
Oh.
this is where I was wondering if from this point forward the whole end
Mhm.
game was different because
Oh my
I
god.
followed Tizo and had a vision, and so I assumed that because I followed Tizo, my whole
What?
end game was Tizo, and I was wondering if you got somebody different and if your end game was different.
Oh.
So Tizo's vision is you're kind of like you enter these mists of the oil fields.
Mhm.
You reconnect with your family again, like your mom and dad.
Oh my
And they're
god.
like, it's similar, like, you should have been here with us, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. And eventually you try to start to leave, but black oil has come up and covered your feet, and like you can't get
Mhm.
away. And you watch your whole family, like pixel art, turn to skeletons, and then you move
Oh.
to into the fight experience that you described. So
Yeah.
I was wondering if it was like, oh, I got Tizo's ending because I chose Tizo for this part of the game. But no, it sounds like this
Oh,
is just like
wow.
you get. I don't remember what the thing was that made this happen, but yeah, it was a very
Yeah,
interesting
same. I'm
experience.
trying to think of what we could have done, like, or what impacted it, and I don't know. I wonder it's either, like, maybe there's like, a certain amount of progression that we did, like, maybe you progressed Tizo further than I did, and I progressed a 4 more, like, on the skill
Interesting.
tree. maybe there was like a narrative thing that we hit. Or maybe because like you know how in one shot the dice character, it's just like whatever playthrough you have, you just get one of the dice options
Oh
of the
yeah, that's right.
6.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like that where like whatever playthrough you're on, maybe there's just like a random chance one of the 3 that you've got in your party. I don't know.
Wow,
I don't know.
that's fun.
But yeah, I'm curious what like was the decision making factor in that, because I think I got the same ending as you, but I did not have that same battle.
Interesting. So, something for us to follow up on. If you got a different ending, let us
Mm-hmm.
know what character, or not ending, a different middle vision part here. Let us know what your character
Mm-hmm.
was, what the experience was.
Yeah.
You make your way through these oil fields. It's gorgeous. It's like sunset on the prairie, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And you make your way to a gate, I think is the next thing that I had, which I was like, oh, this is no problem. I can blow this gate up.
We
I think
got
they're
dynamite. Yeah.
okay. I didn't know if you tried to cleverly solve your way through this. I just
No, no, no.
literally blew up the gate.
Same. There was like I think 3 options, and like the last one was dynamite, and I'm like, what else is dynamite for but to blow up the steel gate? I'm not going to try and be sneaky. I'm not going to try and like be smart. I'm going to just blow things up right now. And it felt very good.
It did feel very good. I
Mm-hmm.
totally agree. It's like, especially after the train derailment, it was like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? I'm not messing around anymore.
Yep, exactly.
So then you have a very satisfying sequence where
Mm-hmm.
you just go from building to building, blowing up their infrastructure. Mwah,
Mm-hmm.
chef's kiss. This was
Yeah.
so satisfying. What was your experience with this?
Oh, it was the same. Just like you see, these pixel arts are the Red Company members like running around, very like ineffectual, just not doing anything except panicking. You just methodically go through, and the map moves up vertically or like northward in a very, very satisfying way. It's like the first time I feel like also in the game that's the direction we move. Like we've always moved left to right, and moving up in this way felt very epic and final and meaningful. And I thought that was
Hmm.
cool because I was like, oh my gosh, like even just changing the direction of us moving feels powerful here. uh,
Ooh,
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I don't know. How did you feel? I mean, you said it was satisfying. Are there any other like things that you were thinking as you were just burning down buildings?
Well, I just remember us talking last week about how like this seems like such an unwinnable fight. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
fighting against the system of colonialism essentially, and
Yeah.
like and it's like hyper capitalistic form. And it's like, well, we kind of know historically how this story ends. How do you possibly disrupt this? And like playing through this and like destroying all this infrastructure, like thinking about how hard it would be to rebuild all of this for
Mm-hmm.
one oil refinery. I don't know. Something about that just really scratched an itch for me.
It did. Well, it's like, I don't know, it made me think about the power of just like the baby step, right? It's like the first step. And maybe this isn't the thing that will topple the empire here, but we stop this and maybe we can slow something down right here in this moment. And yeah, like you said, there's something incredibly satisfying, even though it may not win the war. It's still doing something in this moment. Maybe someone's life will be saved because the Red Company is no longer got a home base here, and that felt powerful and like empowering in a really great way.
The other thing that felt empowering in this moment as you
Hmm.
make your way northward is and maybe this is a Joel problem.
Hmm.
Maybe Joel built up this vision of this badass El Gallo character,
Yeah.
the rooster, that like we're going to be
Oh yeah.
going and like fighting this like ultra badass dude as these
Mm-hmm.
three badasses coming together. But that is not at all what we are met with. Like you're
No.
met with like the I don't even know how to describe it except for like
Like,
someone described like a capitalist cartoon from 1930 and
yeah.
made that your pixel art character.
Yeah, it's like a caricature of like the robber barons, of like the
Yes.
1930s. It was exactly that, and it was
Ugh.
incredible
Like an
because you're just like,
ineffectual coward.
yeah,
just like hiding behind wealth as a way to like hire people to take care of problems, that like the second they're confronted with the violence of their own systemic actions is just terrified, runs away, buries
Mhm.
themselves. Like, I loved it. It was like such a twist on what I expected.
Yeah. I felt like it wasn't for me, I think I always kind of imagined whoever was at the top was probably sort of a weak coward, but it was really satisfying because I don't think I ever visually pictured them. I think I just more emotionally felt like they were the coward, you know? And so seeing that like that character, and especially when you see them for the first time in person and they like immediately run and hide, that just I was like, you know what? We got him.
Yes.
We got him. We're gonna get him. We got him. Like this is ending today. At least for El Gallo, this is ending today. And that felt very good to have that at least moment. Um, and then we get into our final battle, or our final big boss
Big
battle,
battle.
I would
Yeah, yeah,
say.
yeah.
Um, this is the video game moment that you were talking
Yes.
about for
Yes.
sure.
Uh-huh. Like, you start off with just like, there are a few bad guys and the
Hmm.
bosses run away and they're up above and they're like yelling orders or whatever, which is like, okay, this is like starting
Hmm.
to scratch that video game itch, you know?
Yeah.
But then once you take care of the first wave and it's like, oh no, there's a giant machine with like a cannon arm and whatever,
Like
like
the saw,
the
like on the other
saw.
side, yeah.
Yes. Oh man. There was something about that that was just like, this is some video game ass shit and I really like
Mhm.
it. I don't know.
Mhm.
It felt very good.
It did. I think the whole, like, Dr. Robotnik, like, at the very end with, like, all the monster arms and, like, the robot arms, I think that was a perfect way to describe it, and I agree, it felt by the end, when I threw that last bit of dynamite to, like, finish out the job, like, it felt very good. So that was awesome, honestly. I felt like it was a very satisfying final boss battle to begin sort of the last scene, major scene of the game. Um, the machine breaks. El Gallo jumps out and books it. He says I'm going to keep trying to run, and you end up giving chase as, and for me this was as Tizo, and I think for you it
Same.
was the
Yep.
same. And we chase El Gallo, who is somehow running really fast. Honestly, I was like kind of impressed. I was like,
Hmm.
my God, all right, like way more in shape than I thought. Um, and he shoots at us, and there's some misses, but there's also some hits. And what just took my breath away, because I did not realize this, um, is that you see sort of the skeleton and sort of the husk remains of the sacred tree that Tizo grew up with all those years ago. And it was one of those moments where at the very start of that scene, I thought, oh my God, am I in like the oil field mists again? Is this like a vision? And I was like, no, no,
Hmm.
no. This is absolutely real. Like, this is what's happening right now. This is not a vision. And it was one of those really cool, surreal, again, very cinematic feeling moments, even though you've got this like very simple, like 8-bit pixel art. It felt just really overwhelming and like powerful. And yeah, I'm curious how you felt sort of when we started that scene at the very end.
I had the exact same. Like, I felt this game has not evoked a lot of strong emotions for me in the way that a lot of our other games that are very like heartfelt do.
Hmm.
But somehow seeing this very stark tree where it's like, the pixel art throughout this game is very simple. Like
Hmm.
watching the flesh melt off the family's bones
Hmm.
for Tizo was like the first moment where it's like the art itself is like communicating something very emotionally gripping. And I think this was the second moment for me where I was like
Hmm.
seeing that tree rendered with such detail using such simplistic methods
Hmm.
was really stunning for me. I had this like same sense of like, well, this feels kind of cheap that El Gallo is somehow like ridiculously fast, has somehow shot Tizo. Like, this feels wrong to me. But it also reminded me a lot of the Iliad and Paris
Mm-hmm.
being like shooting Achilles' heel with the
Yeah.
arrow. Like throughout the entire story of the Iliad, like they are painting Paris to be this very cowardly, not respectable character. And so when he's the one that shoots Achilles with the heel with the arrow, as a reader, you're supposed to feel this sense of like deep injustice and like how
Yeah.
could that happen, that like ultimately the coward is the one that's taken this character, this really strong badass character, out. And
Mm-hmm.
having that happen here where El Gallo gets this lucky shot off
Mm-hmm.
was like, it had that like it immediately struck me that same sense of like injustice of this kind of cutscene moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it was further highlighted. I don't know if you had this experience where like, so when like you're bleeding out, you're Tizo, you're
Yeah.
approaching El Gallo, and like you basically just need to hit El Gallo one time and they're gonna go out in this like actual like fight sequence.
Right.
If you don't move as Tizo in that moment and you just like let El Gallo shoot in that final moment, he misses. He does not shoot at you.
No.
Like the trajectory of the
Yeah.
bullet is to the side of you. And it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
this is so clever. Like the
Mm-hmm.
writing of this scene, the characterization here, that
Yeah.
like they so clearly told you who this person was and the
Yeah.
deep injustice of this whole situation. Oh, it's brilliant.
Yeah. Exactly. I completely agree. It was I feel like I've gotten choked up at parts of this game. Like I haven't um and I've had moments where I felt like frustrated and I've been invested, but this was the moment where I started crying because I was
Mm,
like, no. And it wasn't even a sad cry. It was like I was angry for Tizo because I'm like, you are right here. You are in this home stretch. If we do not finish this, like I don't know what I will feel at this point,
yeah.
honestly. Um, and fortunately, to an extent, at least for me, the ending was we were able to get that final shot.
Mm-hmm.
We kill El Gallo.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Tizo also it starts punching El Gallo. Like I don't know if it's the shot that gets him, but for sure the punches seal the deal. And this becomes a really painful moment because you see Tizo like start to kind of lose control a little bit because this is like this culminating moment and
Yep.
all of this hatred and all of this rage and this sense of revenge that he's been holding in for decades is like unleashing upon this man's face through his fists. And it hurt to watch, like emotionally, like
Yeah.
viscerally. It felt very painful for me to watch. Is that what happened for you as well?
It was the same. And that
Mm-hmm.
line of dialogue that's like, you see his skull, the skull
Mm-hmm.
could be anyone's, even yours. Like,
Yeah.
like first of all, it felt like not just Tizo thinking like, oh, this could even be my skull. It felt like it was a message directed to me, the player.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. And this is like the thing about revenge stories always is that like what did it cost for you to get this? And while I feel happy that El Gallo is no more, I feel just this deep sense of sadness for Tizo because what did it cost for him to get to the point where he
Hmm.
could do this? An action that is like a net good, but for him, like this has consumed him and his life and any possibility like there's it
Hmm.
I mean he dies because of it. And so uh yeah, I think a lot of times revenge stories don't necessarily hit for me, or I think they miss sort of mm, that trade-off and the consequence of something like this. And I think this is one of the media that I think has captured that really well.
There's something in revenge stories where it's often like the character died And so the message is see violence bad.
Mhm.
And that is not this game.
Mhm.
I think this game's story is, and so you see, like, you're not necessarily just sad because this character dies. Like, I think it's pretty clearly telegraphed from the beginning this character is going to die at the end,
Mhm.
and they don't really have a life worth saving in some ways. The tragedy of Tizo is that he has lived this life not worth
Mhm.
saving, and
Yeah.
that, like, their whole life is the sad part of this. Like, I feel like a lot of our Western media stories keep coming back to this, like violence is never the answer, and
Mm.
so this revenge, like, what was it all for? And that is not at all how I felt at the end of this. It was like,
Mhm.
this is like a righteous violence, if you will, and the out like this is the retribution of these systems of hurt and pain that have been thrust
Mhm.
upon these communities and upon this person. And, like, I don't know, there was something about that felt very, I don't know, I just like the bow on it, like, I don't know what the word is, but, like, it felt like this is the right ending for this character.
Yeah. I agree. 'Cause yeah, at the same time, it's like the question of what is it all for, "Oh, see, we can't do the violent thing because it's, violence is bad," like you were saying. But you know what it's for is the future generations who are gonna be able to live because this El Gallo and his minions, at least for now, have been pushed back enough that they are not occupying this space currently. Like, this is for like the possibility for something better to exist, even though we know that that likelihood is smaller, even though it's maybe still going to be hard to keep whatever peace that they've achieved in this moment. And yeah, I found it really honestly like a good game to play. The Arco as a whole, like a
Mm,
really good game to play right now,
yep.
personally, because I think we're in a moment that feels very aligned with that, where we're trying to, at least in the US, figure out like what is this for and what actions are we going to take? What do we feel what do we feel is worth fighting for and how far are we willing to fight for it? And I think it's a question that we have to take seriously. And I think this is one of the games that takes it seriously in a way that felt very accessible. And while it was heavy, it still felt hopeful in
Yeah.
a way, at least with the ending that we got.
Yeah.
And I think we maybe got the same ending based on
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we didn't talk about this either, but
mhm.
as you're walking from the train to the gate,
Yeah.
you run into you run into a camp and you clear them out and fight the baddies. And
Yep.
there's a group of enslaved people there, and they're like, "Well, what
Mhm.
do you want? Like, do you want our money?" And like, I let them loot the bodies so that they could have some money. And, like, went off. It's like,
Yep.
your direct action with this violence now has freed dozens of people that were enslaved.
Mhm.
You destroying this refinery has freed all of these people that were being kidnapped and forced to work in these fields. It's like, is there economic uncertainty for these people? Yes. Like, have we created a lot of damage to the environment and released all these pollutants in the atmosphere? Yes. But, like, you have cleared out this, like, systemically oppressive force, and, like, will they
Mhm.
come back? Probably, right? But the goodness of your actions feels undeniable to me as a player engaging with this particular media.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It just felt very different and good.
So,
So we
yeah.
kind of get to the end of this story, and then you
Mhm.
have this moment where you have finished your whittling
Mhm.
and you pull it out and you have this owl carving that you get to leave at the base of this tree as you are dying, as you're offering.
Yeah.
And there's, like, this element of forgiveness and reconciliation and hope
Mhm.
in that action that felt
Yeah.
just, like, so powerful.
Yeah. Again, it's I felt like for me and for the way I was playing this game, this was an ending that I had hoped for, that like even though I was pretty certain Tizo would not survive through the end of this game, I didn't want him to have felt like he died in vain or with unfinished business, or with necessarily feeling like he didn't do what he had set out to do. And not just on the side of defeating El Gallo and, getting the Red Company, but I mean, all those years ago when he was a child, and in Act 1, it's like he wanted to just leave this offering at the tree. Like, that was the inciting event. Him going to this tree was the thing that began his journey. So to be able to finish out that offering and sort of make peace with, I guess, the loss of his family, like, yeah.
The response from the tree at the end of the game, we'll talk about the other characters here in a minute, but like the sacred tree appreciates your offering.
Yep.
As kind of like this last culminating moment. There's something about that feels so, it's like, I'll use the word unsatisfying, but I think I need to clarify, because it's like, it's not the tree is restored because of your offering, and so the land will be okay, and you've like altered the course of history.
Right.
Because like, I feel like that again is kind of the like Western shiny ending that is ultimately not satisfying. But the way it's just like, there's appreciation for what you have done here, and that you have honored this sacred experience, just feels right to me. It felt very correct.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, because it would have felt wrong if that alternative of the tree has been restored, peace is upon the land, like that would have felt wrong and false.
That's Final Fantasy.
That's Final Fantasy. Exactly. And that fits in a Final Fantasy.
Yes. 100%.
But I think also I think there's this mentality of, if you take an action, if you do something and it's not a permanent fix, or it's not a permanent change, why do it in the first place? Because it wasn't effective, right? And it kind of ties to almost that fixed mindset of personal development, where it's like, well, if it's not everything, if it's not 100%, if I don't do it perfectly, then it's a nothing. And that's not how change actually happens. That's not how movements happen. It has to be that give and take of doing something with the knowledge that it might not work, or it might not last, but you've paved way for other people to maybe take it a little bit further. And so this appreciation, I think, tying into like what you were saying, is this acknowledgement of like, you have paved a little bit more of that way for the future. And like, I think especially with the tree, the longevity of this tree that has seen hundreds of years, like looking at the size, it's been around for many generations, for a long time. And it's like the tree has that perspective to appreciate and know what you have done to move things forward, even though you didn't fix it. It's great.
It reminds me of the ending of Princess Mononoke, where it's like, you have not resolved all of the conflict between industrialization and the natural world, but you have made a stand here and in this moment. And like, God, there's just something really powerful about that, like lack of resolution, that puts it back maybe in the arms of the viewer or the player to say like, you are in this position now. Like you are in the context of the fight, the ongoing fight here between this kind of natural world and this like exploitative world. I don't know. There's something really powerful about that.
Yeah. And, we can't forget about the other two. I think I would guess that probably Afur and Chio, like, while we had different characters in there, they maybe had similar endings.
I thought that was very funny. Like, you go back and collect your gold dust as Chio, and you set up a trade empire, and the word is empire. I thought that was very funny. Is that what you got for Afur as well?
That's what I got for Afur as well. And I was like,
okay,
all right. Yeah, I thought that was really funny. Itze also cracked me up. I assume
God,
it's the
yes.
same.
Yes, please.
She initially, I think, refused the sort of the rewards, the gold dust, but then took it and commissioned a bard to make songs about her conquests and, amazing abilities.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely the ending that we needed for it's
Hmm.
the only thing that could have been better is if during the final credits we got a vocalized final song
Oh my
hearing of her
gosh.
exploits. That is the only thing that could have put a
That
better
would
cherry on
be
top of that story.
incredible.
And just
I
like her flexing, like
Yeah, in that little cutscene moment, so good. I feel like I should check the soundtrack because I know like there's already, the after each act we have sort of the ballad
mhm,
like sort of vocals that are happening. I wonder
mhm.
if there's like a bonus track. So I'll check and if there is one I will link it in the newsletter.
And if not, when we meet with the creative team, we'll be sure
We'll
to
have to petition them.
petition. Yes. I come to you hat in
So,
hand, begging for
exactly.
its eyes bard song.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And Tizo, the Itzai and either Chio or Afor bring Tizo's body to be buried, I think kind of up higher with a bit of, is it yarrow?
The Yarrow Field. Yeah.
Which is again another callback to sort of that initial moment in Act One when you were collecting the yarrow.
Hmm.
And and yeah, the credits, they have finished by that point and you are left with your thoughts because we have finished the game. Oh my gosh. So yeah, what are your final thoughts, I guess, as we put a bow on our March playthrough and get ready to converse with the development team?
I think overall for me, this is certainly a would recommend game.
Hmm.
Um, while I thought that the fighting experience was repetitive,
Hmm.
they added the accessibility features to let me kind of skip fights that I wasn't really enjoying, and or add
Hmm.
dynamite if I was just trying to find a new path forward, which is like if you're going to make a game with this much fighting, I think the perfect way to balance that out, because it let me enjoy what I thought was a truly fantastic story with
Yeah.
characters that I cared about, and a finale that really put the screws to me in terms of my emotions and my engagement with this world.
Hmm.
How about you? What were your final thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think if I were to play this again, I know there are people who love the battle system, and I think it was really good.
Yep.
It was just a lot for me. By the end, I was also just more invested in the story than I was in the battle system.
Yeah.
And that's a complimentary thing because the battle system was strong, the story system or the narrative was that much stronger. I
Hmm.
think in terms of
Hmm.
just how I felt, even, again, even in Act 4 when I had that moment of like, what is the deal, with his siblings and like why is this all tying, how is it tying in? The way that they carried through all of these really disparate arcs and disparate characters to create a moment at the end where I cared about every single one of them and I just really wanted to see them find success and
Yeah.
like hope in the future. I was in it, and I mentioned this already, but I think this is, I'm really happy that I did not play this initially when it came out. Like right now feels like a really good time to play this game. Like I feel like I needed this game right now.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I think playing this game at any time is probably going to be rewarding, but just for me personally, it's what I needed. And I'm really glad I experienced it with all of you. And just like getting to talk through it, I think helped me
Same.
deepen that appreciation.
This is definitely one of those games where the more we talked about it, the more I found myself liking it.
Hmm.
And not every game needs that, but this is one of those games where like having a group of people that you get to chit chat about it with and like explore
Yeah.
some of the ideas and themes really lets you explore some depth that I think would be potentially easy to miss otherwise. So
Yeah.
big shout out
Agreed.
to the Geeks and Gowns community. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Let's go. no. So yeah, I guess with some housekeeping moving into next week's episode, we have a conversation with Fayer about Arco, and I'm super excited because I believe, and I'll have to get titles for next week, but I believe he did sort of the creative direction, a lot of the narrative of the game. So that's going to be really great talking with him, particularly about Arco. And then we'll have a week off because there's travel. We also taking a little spring break, just for funsies, off of recording, and we'll be back in April on April 15th with tape 1 of Lost Records Bloom and Rage. And so for folks who have been looking for something maybe a little bit less intense on the mechanical side, this is a great one to jump in on because this is much more narrative focused game. It's much more cinematic. You sort of explore, you pick dialogue options, and you get to sort of watch and like immerse yourself a bit more that way versus this tactical battle system that we had with Arco. So I think if Arco wasn't up to your style and personal preference, definitely check this one out. And yeah, I think that is it.
Thank you.
Sorry.
More.
I'm sorry, jump scared you there. Also, the 29th, March 29th, Saturday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, our monthly hangout in Discord. Joel will be leading it because I will be out of town, but I am so sad because you'll be discussing Arco and really just catching up as a community, hanging out, enjoying each other's company. Usually lasts for about an hour. So if you want to stop by, please feel free. You're welcome to, once you hop into Discord, you'll need the Geeks and Grounds role. And then Joel will ping everyone once it's live, and just you can lurk in the chat. Just listen in if you're doing dishes or chores on the weekend, or hop in and join in the voice chat. So there's different levels of participating, however you feel comfortable.
Grab yourself a bevy, come chit chat with us. We love hearing everyone's perspective on these games. Can't wait to talk with you all this weekend. Speaking of talking with you all this weekend, I do want to plug a little side business that Jenny and I are starting, where for the right dollar amount, we will be your bards and write you a song. So do hit us up, find us on SoundCloud, Jenny and Joel, Bard Time. Bye.
Bye.